Hi there, and welcome to Live with the Paper Pixie, episode 334. I'm Julie DiMatteo, the Paper Pixie, coming to you live and a couple minutes late from Alpharetta, Georgia. As you're rolling on in, say hello and where you're watching from if you're watching us live. Also, let us know if you're new here. Today is Wednesday, June 19th, 2024, and I want to give a special shout out to my brother Greg, Bubba G, as you all know and love him. Today is his birthday, so happy birthday, Gregors. I don't know if you're in the chat. He's probably celebrating. But Greg, if you're watching, I'm going to call you after the stream. It's been one of those days. I hope you guys are well. How are we in the 19th of June already? I definitely have one project for you tonight, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be brave enough to attempt the other, but I think I might. You guys are going to have to let me know in the chat. Let me give you a sneak peek of what we're making today. I have pixified a project of mine that I shared, it's been a few years ago now. It was a 8.5 by 11, like a full sheet clutch. This is a mini version of that clutch. Originally, I was inspired by BB Cameron many years ago. I had gotten a swap at a Stampin' Up! Event from one of my team members, pixified that version of the clutch, and then I decided to come back to it and create a gift card sized version of it. So I'm excited to share this with you. This only uses a half sheet of our US cardstock, so 5.5 by 8.5. Super fun to create. This is the project I'm not sure about because I was literally designing it right before I went live, but it is one of those fun fold cards. I've seen it referred to as a WV fun fold. I know Rachel Tessman has shared a version of this. Many other demonstrators, Connie Stewart, so many demonstrators have shared this fun fold. So I don't know, I may attempt teaching you this live if you're willing. Let me know in the chat and I'll have Brian keep his eye on it. Speaking of the chat, if you've got a question for me tonight, put a Q in front of that question. That will make it into my queue when I do tonight's live Q&A. So I'm going to focus on demonstrating tonight's project or projects. And then I will stay on at the end to answer all of your questions. So remember, if you've got a question, put a Q in front of it. Please save the Q for questions. And then I'll stick on until I answer all those questions for you. If you are watching on replay and you do have a question for me, the best way to reach me is my email address, support@thepaperpixie.com. When you shop with me, you earn Pixie Perks on orders of $25 or more. All you need to do is use my magic shopping link, thepaperpixie.com/shop. That will auto-magically take you to the Stampin' Up! Online store, shopping with me with my current host code attached to your order already. If your order is going to be 150 or more, if your subtotal reaches 150 or more, go ahead and take that host code off. You're going to earn Stampin' Rewards from Stampin' Up! You can apply towards free product. And you'll also earn Pixie Perks from me as well, which is my customer loyalty program. We have got a bundle sale this month. We are halfway through it. That is through June 30th, and it's an additional 10% off of our stamp and die bundles, not the punch bundles, but the bundles that are stamps and dies. So an additional 10% off. That equates to 20% off the retail price of the items in the bundle, so it's a great savings, especially since we just launched a new catalog in May, so be sure to take a look at that. There are a few bundles that are sold out, a few that are that are currently in low inventory. Some of them look like they're going to be restocked before the end. If you've got any specific questions about those, let me know. I'm not going to be able to answer sort of inventory issues live because I don't have my laptop up, but you can always shoot me an email as well. So that's the bundle sale this month. We did have new kits that released. There's also a new paper pumpkin kit sign-up period now through July 10th is the cutoff for the July kit. And what else am I missing? Well, if you're a demonstrator, this weekend is our Creativity Now event. That's on Saturday, so that's exciting coming up. We get to see some sneak peek new products. One of my favorite perks of being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, we get to see new products. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Bundle sale. Yeah, I think that's it. My brain is fried today. It's summertime, so I have that summertime brain. All right, let's get this cord out of the way here. All right, so here is our mini clutch. Let me show you in the catalog the products that I'm using. You may have missed this designer series paper. You will actually find that on page 29 of the annual catalog. This is a specialty paper. If you did participate in my paper share or my product shares, I did not include this because it's only 3 sheets of 12 by 12 designer series paper and 3 sheets of sort of die cut ephemera type pieces of paper. And let me show you what one of those looks like. Without too many pieces and parts falling away, I just wanted to show you. So there are 3 sheets that have already die cut pieces. This is one of the 3. All 3 of them are different. You've got some that are great for card layers. And then you've got 2 that have these really cool wreaths and leaves and flowers. So those are already die cut in the package. I will say you want to be really careful when you take these out of the package because they pop out really easily. So I either recommend keeping them in the package or actually taking the time to pop them out and putting them in like a clear plastic sleeve or something like that to go back to and use. But these are beautiful. So we're going to be using the designer series paper, and I'm going to grab one of the elements from the ephemera or the die cut pieces for the little flower on the clutch. All right, let me get this out of the way. For the sentiment on the mini clutch, I'm actually using the Unbounded Love bundle. I'm using the dies, which I love the dies because they've already got some dry embossing around the edge. And then the sentiment, may all your wishes come true, which is a great sentiment for birthdays and adding a gift card to this. Now, if I do the fun fold, I used the word thank you from my small business, and I told you I was going to be using this stamp set a lot because the thanks sentiments are awesome. So, all right. Let's go ahead and jump into our mini clutch. Let me grab my paper, my measurements. I will have a project sheet forthcoming with a template for your reference and all the measurements. Stay tuned for that. I got to take pictures of the project still, so I'll get that uploaded before the end of the day tomorrow in the video description. All right. All right, grabbing my Simply Scored, which is my favorite tool ever. I'm going to go ahead and line this up. This is Petal Pink cardstock, and it measures 5.5 by 8.5. So it is a half sheet of our 8.5 by 11 cardstock, which means you can create 2 mini clutches out of 1 sheet of cardstock. I always love that. So along the 5.5 inch side, to make it easier because we've got some tiny measurements here, I'm going to score on the right side of the paper. So we're going to score at 4.5 and 5.25 from each side. So 4.5, 5.25. For a second I was questioning myself, but that's correct. 4.5, 5.25, and then I'm going to rotate it 180. Again, we're doing this along the 5.5 inch side, and again 4.5 and 5.25. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and rotate it to the long side, or the 8.5 inch side, and we're going to score this at 1 7/8, 2 1/4, 4.5, 5.25, 7.5, and 7 7/8. I'm going to repeat those again. 1 7/8, 2 1/4, 4.5, 5.25, 7.5, 7 7/8. All right. Then I'm going to turn it clockwise. And this is where we have that wider section at the top versus the narrow section at the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and score this at, did I measure this? Okay, 5/8 and 4 7/8. But we're going to do this only down to the 3rd horizontal score line, which I know is going to be a little hard for you to see here on camera. I'll show it to you on the template. So I'm going to go 5/8, stopping at the 1, 2, 3rd, the 1, 2, 3rd, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd score line, 3rd horizontal score line, and then what did I say? 4 7/8, stopping at that 3rd horizontal score line, like so. Okay, and that is all the scoring. Next, I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish on all the score lines that go all the way across the paper. So don't worry about those short score lines where we stopped at that third horizontal score line. Now these little 1/4 inch score lines can be a little bit finicky, so just work your magic with those. It may take a little bit longer to fold it to burnish, but it's worth it. I did want to make sure that this little mini clutch fit a gift card. All right, we got all those score lines folded and burnished, except for those little short ones. And I'm gonna bring in the template here. All right, so let's go ahead and start along the bottom, and that's gonna be the section that has these narrower sections, or the bottom is where we've got the narrower sections. And I'm gonna go ahead and come in 2 score lines from the right, and I'm gonna cut up 1, 2, 3, 4 score lines. So we're coming in 2 and we're cutting up 4. And for this, I'm cutting just inside the score line. Like so, okay? Then I'm going to turn it 1/4 of a turn, and I actually want to leave behind part of this section. So this little square right here is going to end up becoming our tab. So I'm going to actually come into the 3rd score line to cut here. Makes it a little bit easier than cutting up this score line again, okay? So it's like that. We've removed that whole section. And then I'm going to remove this little rectangular piece here. I'm also going to kind of come in and miter cut slightly along this little 1/4 inch section. I kind of fold cardstock out of the way if I need to, so that I can isolate this tab. And then I'm just going to come in and miter cut the tab. Like so. So the bottom right is done. Now I'm going to come in the 2nd score line from the left and cut up 4 score lines. Again, cutting just inside. And we're going to want to leave behind this square, so I'm going to turn it 1/4 of a turn, and I'm going to come over 3 score lines to remove these sections here. Then again, we want to remove this little rectangle. I'm also miter cutting this little 1/4 inch section. I like to get that cardstock out of my way. And then I'm going to come in and miter cut this tab. Like so. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it this way. We've got our wider section now at the bottom, and I'm going to come in 1, 2, 3 score lines and cut up 2. Come in 3, up 2, and again just removing that score line, so cutting just inside, turning it 1/4 of a turn, and we're going to remove these 6 sections here. So in 3, up 2, turn it 1/4 of a turn, in 3, up 3, basically removing those 6 sections in the corner. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing, coming in 3 from the left, cutting up 2, basically cutting up to this larger section here, turning 1/4 of a turn, and removing all of that. Like so. So now we've got a piece, now that I panicked for a second, it was upside down. It's looking like that. All right, so the last bit of tidiness we need to do is just finish miter cutting right here on the top of that little 1/4 inch section. And same thing on the opposite side here. like so. All right. So the last thing we do, or yes, we're gonna round corners, but I'm also gonna bring in the designer series paper here. Just get my mess cleaned up a bit. And I have got 3 pieces of designer series paper. All 3 of these are in landscape, meaning the top is wider than the side with a directional pattern. And these pieces measure, the smaller one is 1 5/8 by 3 1/4. And then these 2 are 2 inches by 3 1/4. So I basically cut a strip to 3 1/4, and then I trimmed off 1 5/8, 2 and 2. Okay. Now the one that is the 1 5/8, or the smaller of the 3, we actually want to go ahead and round the bottom 2 corners because we're also going to round the corners of the box. So let's do that first. With this sort of in portrait, I'm going to round all 4 of those corners. Of course, that's going to fall asleep on me, so I can't read my measurements. Okay. All right, so all of those corners are rounded. That's going to give it a nice finish and also help. This piece is actually going to tuck into the little mini clutch. I'm also going to go ahead and add, did I put that on the wrong? I need to edit the template. This little finger notch needs to actually come down to this score line. I will fix that when I do the project sheet. Let me grab, I've just got a little 1/2 inch circle punch, and let me show you on the clutch. When you open it, there's just a little finger notch here. This is totally optional, but it lets the recipient know how to open that box. So that little finger notch is going to go on the last score line here. And again, that just tucks in, and that finger notch is there to help the recipient pull it out. I'm going to just fold on that last score line here. And with my little 1/2 inch circle punch, I'm not going in very far. It just needs enough to get a little fingernail in there. And by punching with it folded, you get just a perfect little notch there. Okay. All right, so now since I've got my little corner rounder punch, I'm gonna just dry fit the box so you can kind of see how it's gonna go. So this is the front, and then the flap is gonna come down. And because of that, this little 1 5/8 inch piece is gonna go right here. So we need to round the bottom 2 corners. So pay attention to the direction of your paper, and you're gonna round the bottom 2 corners. Like so, okay? All right, so that's all ready. I'm gonna put the template to the side. Now we're gonna go ahead and adhere the designer series paper now, because it's much easier to do that when it's not put together. So again, keeping in mind where this little finger notch is, this is gonna be the front. So I'm gonna take one of my 2 by 3 1/4 inch pieces and adhere it this way. So liquid glue. Happy anniversary, Sharon, to you and your hubby. All right, so that's gonna go there. Now, if you wanted this to be, if you wanted less of the cardstock, because this is a tiny little clutch, you could actually do 2 1/8 by 3 3/8, and then you'd have a 1/16 of an inch. So that's just an option there. Then this one, because this is the back, we're gonna have it go in the opposite direction of the front one. And then flip-flopping back for the front there. There we go. We're gonna do the handle last, just because I don't want it to get crushed while we put this together. All right, so let me flip that over and just show you. So this one is going up and down. These two are upside down if you look at it this way, okay? So if I flip it this way, you can kind of see that. These two are the same direction. This one's the opposite. So just dry fit it before you glue your patterns down just to make sure you got it laid out right, okay? Now I'm gonna grab some tear and tape. Gonna grab the Velcro dot too. Gonna need that. All right. So the new version of tear and tape from Stampin' Up, it was reconfigured, is just about 1/4 of an inch. It's like a hair wider than 1/4 of an inch. In order to make this fit, I was trying to stay within the lines of a 1/2 sheet of cardstock and then make sure that this also fit a gift card. So it's a little bit of a tight fit on these little outside sections that we're going to put tear and tape on, but as long as you're careful and you run it right along that score line, it should be an almost perfect fit. If you happen to have any of the tear and tape that's hanging over the edge, you're just gonna fold it back on itself if it gets in the way. Now you could use liquid glue for this as well. I personally just, for this particular thing, because it's a little hard to get into, once you've glued, we're gonna glue the tabs first. Tear and tape for me is much easier for that. So I just wanna make sure I'm gonna burnish the backing on that just to make it easy to pull off, but we'll pull that off in just a minute. So now I'm gonna focus on the tabs. And before I put glue, I'm gonna put glue on a tab and I'm gonna line up this score line with this cut edge. So our box is gonna go together like so. Okay, so the tab itself is actually folding into the bottom of our clutch. And that just makes sure the tabs don't get in the way of anything that you're gonna put in it, okay? Now be sure to save this video because this will be perfect for Christmas, or really any time you have to give gift cards. So I'm just lining up those edges. It's a little bit challenging to get in there. There we go. And then once that adhesive adheres, then I can just press on the inside just to reinforce it. All right, then liquid glue on the other tab. We're gonna do the same thing, lining up that score line with this cut edge. Just getting it to stick. And then I can press from the inside here. All right, there we go. So the next thing I'm gonna do is pull off the tear and tape. Using my take your pick tool. Of course I'm live, so my tear and tape's like, no, we don't wanna cooperate. If you're brave, you can take it off before you would hear the tabs. All right, so I'm just taking a look to see if I have any tear and tape kind of hanging over the edge. Just kind of fold it back on itself if I do. All right, so now I'm gonna line up this score line edge with this cut edge. And for this, I'm just gonna take my time because with tear and tape, you really only get like one chance. So I did that, and then the other one. Like so. And then what you can do is where those little tabs are in the box, I'm just gonna come in with my bone folder and just reinforce that. All right. So then I'm gonna pinch. We did these little score lines on the side, and that was really just to kind of help the design of the box. Just kind of pinching right on those score lines. That's gonna give us a little bit of a tapered edge there. So the bottom is 3/4 of an inch. The top is measured to be half that size, which is 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just tucking that little tab back there. See that? And again, let me pull that out and just show you what we did. This tab, I'm just tucking into that back section, kind of pinching at the same time, like so. But let me show you how a gift card fits. So that's gonna pop right in there. Perfect fit. And you can even add a few treats in there as well, like some Hershey's miniatures or some Werther's or probably a Ghirardelli square. So a little bit of, maybe a little treat and a gift card. And then that's just gonna fold over and down like so. That's so cute. I love it. All right, let me get a Velcro dot. These are just 5/8 of an inch thin clear fasteners from Velcro. You can find them on my favorites page. I love them so much. And they're super thin, perfect for projects. So are magnets as well. So I'm just gonna stick that on the back flap there. Pull off the backing on the other side and just make sure everything's lined up before I close that flap. Okay, so I'm gonna open it again. I do like to just press on the Velcro dot, like so. And now let's do our little handle. All right, so the handle itself, and you can play around if you want a longer handle or a shorter handle. What I liked is a 3/8 of an inch by 4.5 inch piece of the same color cardstock. So this is petal pink. And I'm gonna score each end at 3/4 of an inch. So you can do it any way. If it's easier for you to do it on the right, I would just do it at 3 3/4, flip it, and do 3 3/4 again, or you can obviously do 3/4 here on the left. So I've got, this is the side that I scored on, so I'm actually gonna take my bone folder, put it on the back, and I'm gonna sandwich the cardstock between my thumb and bone folder, and I'm just gonna gently curl. Now, a little tip with cardstock. Our cardstock has fibers in it, and I'm not sure that Stampin' Up! Always cuts in the same direction with their 8.5 by 11 cardstock. So if you get a strip where you've cut it, and when you're doing that burnishing, you're starting to see kind of like wrinkles in the paper, like it's fighting the curve or the curl, then I recommend cutting your strip in the opposite direction. So basically, turn your paper 1/4 of a turn and try cutting it again. I did have that with this cardstock. I don't know if I saved. Well, it got crushed in the meantime. I just pulled this out of my trash. But I want to see if I can demonstrate. Yeah, it's not going to be a good example because it's totally crushed. But what I was finding was that my cardstock was doing some interesting things. Like right here, you can see above my left thumb, because of the fact of the paper fibers. They're long and it can actually affect how your paper curls. So just a tip, you might need to just turn your cardstock 1/4 of a turn to cut your strip a different direction. So then I'm gonna go ahead and just bend backwards on those handles, and then we have kind of this inchworm looking piece of cardstock, okay? So using liquid glue, I'm gonna start with one side at a time, because I want to make sure that this is good and adhered before I squeeze to add the other side. So I'm going to line that up right up to the edge of the lid there and just hold that in place for a few seconds. And once I feel like that's good and stuck, then I'll come in and put liquid glue on the other piece. And now I can inchworm this into place. I feel like that should be a verb, inchworm. Oh, it's so cute, and that's so fun. So now this clutch has a little bit of a, I should say, what is that? Taller flap, or I should say wider. It's not wider, taller flap than the full sheet of cardstock version that I have. And that was really just because I wanted to maximize the use of the 8.5 5.5 by 8.5, but I do also love the way that that looks. Just like clutches, they oftentimes have that longer flap. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and decorate this. To save time, I've already die cut this piece using the Unbounded Beauty dies, and it's got that very awesome dry embossing to it. And I'm going to use Lost Lagoon ink. Pretty Peacock is in this as well as Garden Green, and I think Granny Apple Green. And I'm going to stamp May All Your Wishes Come True, also from Unbounded Love. I keep saying Unbounded Beauty. I think that's the DSP. And I'm going to stamp this to the right side because I want to leave a little bit of space for the flower from the die cut pieces. All right, I'm going to give that a second to dry. Let me go grab my flower. And I just popped that out of the die cut pieces. I'm going to use a dimensional for that one, I think. Okay, there we go. So liquid glue on the sentiment piece. I'm going to pop that on the front. Like so. Okay. And then take off that backing. I'm going to grab my take your pick tool. Where did I put it? Huh. I put it back, but of course I can't see it. I'm just going to pick that up and let's pop it. Like so. There we go. All right, and we need one more thing, of course, a rhinestone. I've been going through so many rhinestones. Look what I did. Something got in the way and pushed all my rhinestones off to the side. I've been using so many of those. I haven't even put this into my embellishment storage yet. Welcome to summer in the DiMatteo household. All right, so this part is totally optional to add maybe a little bit of a decoration on the side. I'll show you what I added with the sample. And this is, as far as I remember, I think this is still in the online exclusives. It comes with both, it's a combo pack, both silver and gold trim. So I opted for the silver to go with the rhinestone. And we're gonna attempt to tie a bow here while live. Probably too long of a tail. What's the verdict on the card? Thumbs up? Okay. We'll do it. We'll do the card. All right, so let's zhuzh, because this is a little dainty box and I want a little dainty bow. The other thing too is you could create a bow and just add it with a mini glue dot if you wanted to, as opposed to tying it around the handle. There we go, that looks cute. Zhuzh those bows and then trim. But this would be really cute with even linen thread would be really sweet on this as well. Just gives it a little extra something there. You could also add embellishments right here on either side of the handle to make them look like rivets. Those are called rivets, right? Rivets on like a leather bag. You know what I'm talking about?
The ones that are in jeans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're called on. For the rivets. Okay. All right, let me just put my ribbon away before it unravels on me. I love using these ball head sewing pins to keep my ribbon at bay. All right, so there we have our mini gift card clutch. I love the way it turned out. So a mini version of my clutch from a few years ago. And again, it is sized to hold a gift card. There we go. I don't want to show you the number because I haven't used that gift card yet. Oh, super fun. And again, it only uses a half sheet of cardstock plus a little, which I know you've got pieces like that in your scraps for the handle. It doesn't need a handle, so obviously you've got lots of options here, but that is the clutch. All right, so we're gonna attempt to create the fun fold card. So bear with me. I'm going to grab a piece of petal pink cardstock. We're gonna cut this to 5.5 by 11. So it's not quite the way we would normally cut it for an A2 card. So on the 8.5 inch side, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this at 5.5. So you can't get two of these out of a piece of cardstock, but it's a fun fold, so it's worth it, okay? So 5.5, excuse me, 5.5 by 11. Let me look at my notes. I do have a little bit of a template for you as well. I almost got it there, but not quite. All right. So with the 5.5 inch side here along the top, I'm gonna line up the left side at 1 1/4, okay? And I'm actually gonna turn it sideways again. It's gonna be a little bit easier for you to see. So we've got this edge here lined up at 1 1/4, and I'm gonna line up my cutting tool to 1 3/4. So I've got my measurements here along the edge. I'm gonna start the cut at 1 3/4, and I'm gonna go to 5 1/4. This is going to be a little bit similar to last week's fun fold. Then I'm going to lift up that and I'm going to move this to 4 1/4. And we're going to do the same thing. Now my cutting blade is already at 5 1/4. So again, 5 1/4 to 1 3/4. I'm just going to go back this way. It's the same measurements, 1 3/4 to 5 1/4. And you're gonna have a piece that's got these two slits in it, okay? For me, with these fun folds, it's easier to do the cutting part first and then come in and do the score lines. So I'm actually gonna bring in the Simply Scored for this. You can absolutely do this on the paper trimmer. With my slits, I should say, got those off to the left side. So we're along the 11 inch side here, and I'm gonna go ahead and score all the way across at 3.5 and 7. Okay, so those two are all the way across. I'm gonna actually come back to those because we're gonna flip-flop sort of the direction those score lines go, but 3.5 and 7. And then we're gonna go ahead and score at 1 3/4 and 5 1/4. But we're gonna skip the middle section. So 1 3/4, I'm gonna score from the top down to that slit that I made. I know this is hard to see on petal pink, okay? And then because I can see where the end of the slit is, I can continue the score line down here. But that's at 1 3/4. The other one is 5 1/4, again, skipping that middle section and continue it down this way. So you end up with something that looks like that. All right, now I'm gonna flip this over and do a couple of different score lines. Again, I know this is hard to see with the paper. On the back, that 7 inch score line, I actually want to be on the opposite side. Then let's see if I can remember here. The 3.5, but only the top and bottom section. So it's just because of the way that we're scoring that. Okay, so these short ones are both gonna be mountain folds as well as this middle one. These short ones in the middle and this long one are gonna be valley folds. Not totally, you know me, I'm particular with the way that which side we score on and which way we fold, but you'll be fine if you just wanna score all on the same side, okay? So again, just a reminder of those measurements, 3.5 and 7, we're going all the way across. We've got our slits here on the left side. So 3.5 and 7 all the way down. Then at 1 3/4 and 5 1/4, we're only scoring at the top and bottom from slit to edge. We're not scoring in this middle section. Just to illustrate that, this is the template that I'll include on the project sheet for this. Kind of looks like, this reminds me of like a soccer field or a football field. What do you think? With the goalie. That's what it feels like. Only those should technically be here if it were an actual football field or soccer field. Anyways, I digress. But there we have it. So we've got our slits going here. Again, that was 1 3/4 to 5 1/4. And then we have our score lines at 1 3/4, skipping the middle section. 3.5 all the way through. 5 1/4, skipping the middle section. And 7 all the way through. Okay. All right, so now we are gonna go ahead and turn our folds. So I've got my, again, slits on the left. We're gonna fold that first one on the right, turning that into a valley fold and burnish. That's the easy one. And then these guys, the 2 bottom ones here are gonna go back, but the rest of them are going to kind of pinch this way. See how I'm doing that? The rest of them should go or start to go where you want them to. So again, I'm just using my index finger, thumb, and middle finger just to kind of tell the paper where it's supposed to go, and then you can just kind of squash it all together. Okay, now I'm gonna come in and burnish just to make sure those are nice and crisp. A little hard to burnish on these guys, but I'll attempt to. There we go. All right, so technically this card measures 5.5 by 4, and that is just because of making sure we have these equal, it's to help with measurements, okay? So it's 5.5 by 4, so just a 1/4 inch narrower than a regular A2. And now the fun part is gonna be to do the designer series paper. So let me show you what I've done here. We're gonna actually take 2 pieces of designer series paper and cut them at the same time to do, again, these like Tetris pieces. Now, I'm gonna tattle on myself. I goofed. You probably can't see it as much here because I actually had that piece. I didn't cut my starting piece to the right size, so I actually pieced designer series paper, and really to the naked eye, or the recipient would probably never notice that, but I know it's there. So I do make mistakes, but there are ways to fix them, especially with the designer series paper. So I just cut a little 1/4 inch piece to kind of patch that together. But I loved this being all the same pattern of designer series paper. Now you can do, these can be kind of contrasting patterns with the patterns you have here. You could have this be basic white if you wanted this to be designer series paper. So you've got lots of options. To do these sort of Tetris pieces, we're gonna need a piece that is 5 1/4 by, let me measure and make sure I get it right. It is 5 1/4 by 3 1/4. Okay, so we're gonna cut 2 pieces of that. I didn't cut those ahead of time. One thing about the specialty paper is you just get 1 piece of each of the 3 patterns. So I had to be careful about my cuts. So we are doing 3 1/4. I'm cutting this in portrait. So the first cut with my pattern going up and down is 3 1/4. And then I'm gonna turn it sideways, and then we're gonna cut to 5 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 5 1/4, and you can actually just dry fit it, which I didn't do, but just to make sure that you've got 1/8 of an inch here and 1/8 of an inch here, and then we're gonna cut into that. And the really cool part is that what we're cutting into is gonna become the pieces that we place here. So we'll have to trim them a little bit, but it's a great way to conserve your pattern paper because we all love it. We never wanna cut into it. So this is a way to make the most of your DSP. I am gonna need that. Okay, actually, let me cut a couple more things, and then we'll have all the pieces and parts ready to go. All right, so basic white, I'm gonna cut a piece to 5 1/4 by 3 3/4, because again, this is a 4-inch wide fun fold. So it's not 5 1/4 by 4 like I usually do. It's gonna be 3 3/4 by 5 1/4, and that's gonna lay right there. And then I need a piece of, I cut Flirty Flamingo. Technically, the color in this paper, Stampin' Up! Has said that it is pumpkin pie. And you can see the pumpkin pie on the little flower, but I actually think that Flirty Flamingo looks really nice with this as well. So I'm gonna cut a piece, I wanna say that was 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. This is probably already 2 1/4. Yep. Here we go. So up to you. You could do pumpkin pie. Flirty Flamingo still looks really nice with this paper. It's a little bit pinkier, but thought it looked nice. And then you can pull in Pretty Peacock or Garden Green or Granny Apple Green if you prefer. And then I have die cut from Stylish Shapes. This one is just under 2 by 2. I want to make sure that's correct. Yeah, it's like 1 15/16. So for good measure, we'll just say that's a 2 by 2 inch square, and then that's going to layer nicely over that 2 1/4 inch square. And I'm keeping the sentiment on this very simple because the card is a complicated kind of fun fold. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paper. I'm going to sandwich the wrong sides together, if that makes sense. Okay. So that we've got the same pattern on both sides. And the way we're going to cut this, I have to double check myself on measurements because I didn't write these ones down. Actually, I'm going to adhere the basic white before I do anything else so that I don't lose it, because you guys know me. So just a quick reminder on questions. You don't need to submit them multiple times. I do have them in my queue, but I am saving questions for the end of tonight's live stream. So hang tight and we'll get to them. All right, just smoothing out the glue there. All right, let me put this off to the side. And the paper trimmer. All right, Julie. This is the part where you guys are gonna watch me figure this out live. All right, because I goofed when I was doing the sample. So we are gonna line up 1 1/2. Thinking this through. 1 1/2, and I'm gonna cut down 1 1/4. All right. So again, we got this sandwiched. So the patterns that I want are on the outside, both sides. And I'm doing this so that when we cut these, they're gonna be mirror images of themselves, and it's just gonna be easier. So lining up this left edge at 1 3/4. And I'm actually gonna bring my cutting tool down to, what did I say? 1 1/4, I think. Yepers. All right. So 1 1/4, pardon my head here. So I'm going to cut 1 1/4 and up, okay? And then I'm going to cut from 4 down. So again, holding my paper in the same spot, lifting this. Okay, let me know if I'm back. It says we're live again. We'll wait till the chat catches up. Apparently I had an internet connection. We'll wait a moment. We're good? Okay, awesome. Thank you. We're back. Sorry, guys. We had a little internet hiccup. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that one more time because I'm not sure where I ended. So I'm lining up the left edge at 1 1/2, and we're cutting from 1 1/4 up and 4 down. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn my paper here, turning it to where my pattern goes from top to bottom is left to right. And I'm going to line that up. Let me make sure I'm doing that right at 1 1/4, I think it is. Yeah. So then at 1 1/4, and I'm gonna cut all the way to that slit, which is technically at 1 3/4. So 1 1/4 on the left, we're cutting at 1 3/4 and up. And that should remove that little section we'll put off to the side. Okay. And then this edge, are we doing 4? Hold on. Yep. Then we're lining up the left edge at 4, and again, 1 3/4 and up. Okay. All right, so now, I hope that's right. I'll bring the paper trimmer back in a moment. I will have all of these measurements on the product sheet for you. Yay! All right, so because we did mirror image, there we go. Okay. Yay, Heather, welcome to the Pixie patrons. So like so. All right, so now we've got these pieces, which I'm hoping I didn't goof too much. I didn't. I did make a mistake, but it actually worked out. So you're actually gonna trim these pieces to 1 1/4 by 1. I'm gonna double check that. 1 1.5 by 1, excuse me. So let me put this off to the side, bring in my paper trimmer again. And just make sure they are already 1.5 because I goofed, but then I'm going to cut off to 1. So really what you're going to end up doing is cutting 1/4 inch off of whatever's that we removed from our little Tetris pieces, just to maximize your paper there. I know I could be doing these all at once, but sometimes with the smaller pieces, it's a little bit harder to keep them together. Alrighty, so now we've got, and these pieces are all landscape. These are 1 by 1.5, okay? Just gonna take my liquid glue now. Oop, a little harder to hold when it's a Tetris piece. Thank you for encouraging me to do the card. I hope you'll give this one a try if you haven't already. There's a number of different names for it. The WV, the accordion fold, a little bit like a Z fold too, so lots of different options. So I'll do the big pieces first. While I'm gluing, I want to give a shout out to my Pixie patrons. You'll recognize them in the chat with the little magic wand by their name. They have chosen to be members of the YouTube channel to support us here on YouTube. And our episode number 9 of our members only stream is tomorrow night, June 20th, 2024 at 8:00 p.m. We'd love to have you join us. There is a join link in the description if you don't see the join button beneath the video. The join button is usually right next to the subscribe button, but it all depends on what device and app you're using. But tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, will be our members only stream. We do it once a month on the 3rd Thursday of the month. They get free card templates from me, and we have a good time together. It's a little bit more of a laid back stream. I take breaks throughout to answer questions and always have a fun engagement question for you guys. I learn a lot from my Pixie patrons. Ooh, yes, tomorrow is the first day of summer. That's right. All right. So again, you can mix and match the patterns, the colors, But it's just such a beautiful, I don't know, I love this pattern of the designer series paper, so I wanted to showcase all of it. So now we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna stamp, and I'm using a different stamp set. Again, the mini clutch we use Unbounded Love. I keep saying unbounded. Unbounded Love. And for this one, we're using My Small Business, both in the annual catalog, but the thank you sentiment, I'm gonna stamp that in Lost Lagoon. And this has a little bit more of like a watercolor effect, this thank you. Kept questioning my stamp result, but I looked at the stamp artwork and it is a little bit of a watercolor effect. There we go. So as that dries, it'll smooth itself out. Then we'll just do liquid glue. So simple, simple, simple to showcase this fun WV fun fold. And if you're just joining us, it's called WV because of the look there. WV. And there's a number of different ways to do this. I chose to add slits. There are many folks that have just done scoring and then added a square panel. So there's a couple of easy ways to do it as well. I love figuring out the measurements, especially for those fun Tetris pieces. All right, so I'm gonna just do 5. I know it looks like too many, but you can never have too many dimensionals. And we're gonna pop that. I'm looking here for the same sort of border on the right and the top and the bottom. And that actually is gonna center the sentiment here in the middle of the card, because this comes just about a 1/2 inch short from the 4-inch base there. And then we just need 1 rhinestone, which I put somewhere. Let's see. I literally just had them, didn't I? Here they are. I'll just pop that in the lower right corner. I'd love to see your WV fun fold cards and how you kind of picked designer series paper. If you did anything different with the base, again, you could put designer series paper here, basic white here to write your sentiment. It does stand up on its own because it's got that W along the bottom. So the recipient can place it on display. You could add stuff to the back. You can do a whole number of things with this fun fold. So just to recap, here are tonight's projects. Project sheets will be forthcoming, so keep an eye out on the description of the video. There will be a blog post, probably gonna come out next week. I've got 2 more blog posts to get caught up on, and then this will hit the blog as well. You can always subscribe to receive my blog posts via email at thepaperpixie.com. So those are tonight's projects. Now, let me go ahead and tee up questions from you guys tonight. If you've got questions for me, just go ahead and put a Q in front of that question. That will make it into my queue. And as long as the stream stays up, I'm about 20 to 30 seconds ahead of you. So if I don't see your question, it probably came in at the end. You can always shoot me an email at support@thepaperpixie.com. All right, Paula is up first. Is there a leather look paper in the current catalog that would make this look like a briefcase? I don't think we have a leather. Hold on. This is actually wood grain, but this pattern could be really cool to make it look like a briefcase. I know it's wood, but it's got a little bit of a leather look to it. This is the Country Woods designer series paper, so that's an option. All right. The corner rounder is not on my favorites list, Cheryl. I can add it to the list. It will not be an affiliate link because it's against policy for me to share affiliate links to punches. But I can also add it to the description as well. So it's a 2-pack. It's from EK Success. They're actually the company that makes our Stampin' Up! Punches, so I love this brand, EK Success. But it's a 2-pack. You get a 1-inch corner rounder. And no, that's not the right one. 1 inch and 1/2 inch. It's a little 2-pack. So I can add that to the description. You can also shoot me an email, Cheryl. Let's see. Any thoughts on how to change up the handle to be more masculine or just leave it be? I actually think you could leave it be, don't put the ribbon on it, and maybe add some metallic embellishments as little rivets, and that should make it a little bit more masculine. That's what I would do. Because really, like a men's briefcase would have a handle on it. The other thing you could do is actually make the handle a little bit smaller if you wanted to.
Square.
Or square. That would be cute too. Yeah, I like that. Great question, Robin. Hi, Robin. It was so good to meet you on Saturday. Let's see. This really comes down to user preference. For card making specifically, you really could use either or, glue versus tape. What I found here in the Atlanta area is I actually have better success with the liquid glue because of the humidity. Now our Stampin' Seal and Stampin' Seal Plus are both very sturdy tapes, but from an economics perspective, this is the way to go, because this bottle of glue, I think it's $5.50, and I can make like 100 cards with this glue bottle, whereas with a tape runner, this only goes so far. So, and price-wise, this is much more economical. So I personally like the liquid glue. I could list a whole bunch of reasons why. One, it's just easy to move things around and get things centered. You've got some wiggle room. It's more economical. It does take a little bit of practice to get the right amount of glue to come out, but my preference is liquid glue. But with card making, you really could do either or. With 3D projects, however, I do recommend either liquid glue or tear-in tape. Even with tear-in tape, I would still lean towards the liquid glue because the tear-in tape sits on top of the paper. Liquid glue will absorb into the paper, and so you get a much better adhesion that way. That's just my preference. Great question. Let's see. Oh, good. Good to know, Sharon, that you purchased a trimmer, but the scoring tool wasn't working and you're getting a replacement from Stampin' Up. That's why they're so awesome. So the different colors of the Pixie Patron wands are just dependent on how long they have been a member. So, I don't remember. The order of colors, I believe, is the rainbow order of the brights, because that's my favorite color family, and that's how I color coded those. But they change based on like 1 month. It's all listed in the membership, in the channel membership information, but I can't remember what the breakdowns are. It's like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, that type of thing. So they'll start to change color over time depending on how long they've been members. Yes, Maria, if you become a Pixie patron, you'll be able to go back to past posts and watch prior videos with the project sheets and all that good stuff. Okay. During the Stampin' storage sale, I was able to pick up magnet sheets for the die cuts, the 5x7 size. What plastic sleeves work best with these? They had 6x7 size. Are those the ones you use? So for the magnet cards, I go between the 5x7 and the 6x7. If I could have them all 5x7, I would. It's just that some of our sets, some of the dies are bigger than 5x7. So I do have a few 6x7, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to move them all to 6x7 or what I'm going to do. For me, I love the C-line shop ticket holders. There is a size that's perfect for the 5x7. You do have to trim it down. That is linked in my favorites page. I think they're 5x8, and I trim them down to 7 1/4. Oops. Just to show you an example. So this is the C-line shop ticket, plenty of room for the 5x7 magnet cards. And again, I just trim them down to 7 1/4. I love these. And for me, it's like a crafty particularity because I love the Stampin' storage pockets. However, They have tabs, and I buy dies all throughout the year, and it bothers me to have the tabs out of order. So I choose to use these, and they're a great price as well. I am trying shop ticket holders that fit the 6x7. However, I don't know if you can tell, they are a much tighter fit. So been a little bit frustrating with those. As you can see, there's a little bit more space with the 5x7, 6x7. Anyways, so C-line shop ticket holders. Let's see. Oh, do I clean my craft area after a live? It depends. So it depends on how I feel after the live. A lot of times I'm exhausted and I just need to go sit and calm my mind. And it's, you know, I love doing lives, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's like, ooh, I gotta relax. But other than that, as long as everything has a place, it doesn't take me very long to clean up. I only use a couple stamp sets during the live. If I clean them, Brian's gonna start laughing at me. But it doesn't take me too long as everything's got a place to go. So, and that's, organization is what? Crafting is 50% organization, 50% creativity. So it does take some time to get your space to a place where everything has a place. That's how you can kind of keep it tidy and find things. And it's always a work in progress for me, but great question. All right, I have reached the end of tonight's questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. As always, don't forget, all you need are stamps, ink, and a little paper pixie. Tomorrow night, June 20th, 2024, is our Pixie Patron members only live that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, episode 9. So if you're not already a channel member, you can join at any time. We'd love to have you join us tomorrow night. You'll find the join button beneath this video, and if you don't see the join button, look in the description. I've got a join link for you there to make it real easy. I will have project sheets posted for these projects. Give me till the end of the day tomorrow, about 24 hours. I will also add, let's see, chapters to the video. So if you are watching on replay, you'll be able to bounce around to different sections of the video so you can go right to where you need to go. And these projects will post to my blog next week at thepaperpixie.com. Make sure you check out the bundle sale, an additional 10% off our stamp and die bundles. That equates to 20% off the retail price. I did forget to mention also the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machines. All 3 of them are 10% off if you've been waiting to add a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine to your crafty stash. Now's a great time to do it. They are 10% off. So you can check out that bundle sale at stampinup.com. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week. Thanks for bearing with me tonight with hiccup with the internet, and I started a few minutes late. You all are wonderful. Thanks for joining me, and thanks to those of you watching on replay. Here's a shout out to my Pixie patrons. I'm so grateful for your support. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week, June 26th. Am I doing the math right? For episode 335 of Live with the Paper Pixie. We'll see you next time. Take good care. Bye.